Merlin's beard. We had the sixth one already. Hey folks, the revisit of the Harry Potter film franchise marches on, and we have arrived at the Half-Blood Prince. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I like this one a lot. I feel like this one doesn't get talked about particularly much. And I can't tell if it's one people have a lot of major issues with or not. I could tell if I was partial to more research, and I'm sure I'll find out in the comment section. But like with, say, Goblet of Fire, which I also quite like, I know what some of the issues people have with that one are. This one, again, unless you're a book purist, which book purists never like the adaptations. I'm sorry, they don't. But unless that's what's going on for you, I think there is a lot to like about this as a film in and of itself, and honestly as an adaptation. It was interesting going back and revisiting, because I've always known I liked this one, but I honestly didn't really know why I like this one as much as I do. And it hit me this time. It's because this is the first one since at least Prisoner of Azkaban, I would argue since Chamber of Secrets, that feels like it's just happening at the school. It gives us classrooms again. It gives us that sense again. It brings back that vibe that has kind of been lost. It largely started to fade with Prisoner of Azkaban. And this is not criticism of Prisoner of Azkaban or Goblet of Fire or Order of the Phoenix. But those all had much bigger picture things that they needed to focus on. Because Prisoner of Azkaban had all of Harry's revelations about Sirius and his family and all of that going on. You still had some classroom stuff with Lupin, but it was starting to be on the decline by then because we had him and we had a little bit with Trelawney. But you could feel the non-classroom stuff starting to pull attention, not just in the climax, but in the overall story. And the fourth one, it was all about the tournament. Fifth one, you had all this stuff going on with Harry. It was about his inner turmoil, and it was about Umbridge taking over the school. And we lost the thread on those classroom scenes, on the feel of the day-to-day school vibe. And also, I feel like this has a bit more color in it as well, and I mean that quite literally. It's still fairly toned down color. It is fairly darkly lit, but it doesn't feel like everything's just blue. Like, it felt like there was a blue filter over a lot of Order of the Phoenix. That's not the case here. Colors are toned down, but they're there. They're not washed out. It's not monotone. It's just dulled, which works and makes sense for where the story's going overall. And I think a big part of why we get as much classroom stuff back is because we need that for Slughorn to work. And Slughorn continues this series trend of having its secret weapon being the casting, which is basically always perfect. And Jim Broadbent as Slughorn is just perfect. Because like Slughorn he's a creep. He's a creep of a character. But Jim Broadbent is such an affable performer. He brings such a likability inherently. He just has that as an actor. And it doesn't make him suddenly not a bit of a social climbing creep, but it makes you not automatically hate him. And his moments where he needs to be more endearing and to come across as human, Jim Broadbent is able to sell that. He does it really, really well. I also feel like, and this is going to be weird coming from me, as much as I don't care for romantic subplots, things like what went on with Ron and Lavender, and yes, quick side note, the whole thing that went on with the Lavender recasting, because there was another actress basically cast as Lavender up until this point, but Lavender was a background character who never had any lines, and that actress was a person of color, and then as soon as Lavender actually had stuff to do, they brought in a white actress, and that is kind of messed up. Regardless of what you feel about anything else, they had cast it, and then they changed it. It's a little bit weird. I guess they figured they could get away with it because, again, she hadn't spoken up to that point. But, like, it's odd and a little bit, But setting that aside, but I did want to acknowledge it, like, that sort of weird, awkward first relationship of, this is exciting, but, like, now I kind of want to get out of it, that Ron has going on with Lavender, I like that. That feels very teenager. It feels very school. And honestly, so does Ron's thing with Hermione, which I don't love overall, but I do buy well enough. I think largely because by about the third movie, the writers and the directors knew that these two were going to end up becoming a thing. So this felt like it was getting planted and seeded, especially in like Goblet of Fire and a little bit in Order of the Phoenix. So this felt like a natural progression for them. Ginny and Harry, not quite so much. That felt a little bit more out of the blue, and I think largely because of Ginny kind of getting the short shrift in earlier installments. She was always kind of there, but that was it. She was just kind of there. And it's not bad. Their chemistry's okay, but it's not great. I actually don't think Daniel Radcliffe does romantic chemistry especially well. I don't think it's limited to her. He didn't really have it with Cho Chang either. So I just don't think I think that's not really part of his acting repertoire. And I've seen him in a fair amount of stuff, and more often than not, if I've really liked him, it's been in a part that didn't really have a romantic component going on. So, I that just kind of is there. Draco Malfoy. Some really good stuff going on with this performance, and Tom Felton really nails how scared he is. Like, we don't get enough time alone with him to confirm this, but like my read on this is very much he is still trying to convince himself that he wants this because he wanted it for so long. Now that he has it, he is terrified. And deep down, he probably knows he doesn't want this. But he's worked so hard for it, and he's so scared of what's going to happen to him. When he's pointing his wand at Dumbledore breaking down, when he says he's going to kill me, the look on his face. Oh my God. Look, all the performances are so top-notch in this. There is an angst about Snape that really pays off at the end. Gambon's Dumbledore, I think this is the best he ever was. And also, overall, this feels like a movie that makes the world feel bigger. It was starting to feel incredibly confined to Hogwarts. And it's not like we never went to other locations, because we did. There were, we had Diagon Alley, we'd been to the Burrow, there were things like that, but it was usually only like one, other than the Dursleys, one additional non-Hogwarts location per film. And it still largely felt kind of isolated. But here, we get a little bit of everything. We get a nice mix. We get the Burrow. We get the Three Broomsticks, and we get the house that Dumbledore finds Slughorn in, which honestly, like, we're just in a house. We're just in somebody's house. That doesn't happen in this. And it helps it feel like a bigger, more lived-in world. We get that. We get Diagon Alley. We get Borgin and Burke's. We get all these little additional things. The cave that Dumbledore and Harry go to, it makes it all feel bigger in a way that the other films never really quite captured, I don't think. I think that's another thing that I really like about this film that really kind of upped things in a specific realm that hadn't really been pulled off before. If I'm going to have, other than some of the nitpicky things I already mentioned, from an adaptation standpoint, I'd say there's one primary failing that this has. And that is it fails to deliver on Harry's hero worship of the Half-Blood Prince, who was the former owner of his potions textbook, and who had a bunch of notes in there, and Harry's starting to idolize whoever this person he doesn't even know who it was. The movie doesn't really capture that. In the movie, the textbook is really just, it's basically a cheat sheet for him. It doesn't do a good job of hammering home how dependent and how much of a security blanket the thing became for Harry. Not just for academics, but like in general, he really related to whoever this person was. And because they don't sell that sort of borderline hero worship of Harry towards the Half-Blood Prince, the revelation at the end that it was Snape doesn't land the way that it should, because they didn't sell that aspect well enough. It was sold much better in the book. So that is one specific aspect of the adaptation that I do think actually does kind of fail. And I will absolutely admit to that. They needed to do a better job on that part, and they didn't. But there's just so much that I love about this. So many of the big thing approaches, the overall feel and flow of it, it feels in many ways like it's pulling back in, like it's almost calmer, because, you know, we had the very intense stuff going on with the Triwizard Tournament, and then with Umbridge there, things feel a little bit more relaxed. Yes, there's darkness, there's bad stuff going on in the world, but like at Hogwarts, all right, we're just going to class. Okay. To then get the rug pulled out from under us with what Harry and Dumbledore go through in that cave, and then Dumbledore, spoiler, dying. It's a really effective contrast within the film itself, not just a contrast of the series overall, like contrasting from where we started, like within this specific narrative. It is contrasted quite well. And it's got a lot of wonderful little moments. I really love the performance from Radcliffe when he has had the liquid luck. He's got this great, he's basically got drunk swagger is what he's got. And it's wonderful and hilarious. And again, the actors are so good in their parts, they don't need a big highlighted moment to still like have something that I will always remember. Like McGonagall I will always remember this one little moment where she tells Potter, oh no, you can take potions, advanced potions, because Slughorn doesn't require you to have had as high grades in that as Snape did. And then she looks and sees Weasley and says, Potter, take Weasley with you. He looks far too happy over there. It's just this one little moment, like, oh, God, Maggie Smith, so good. Because they're all good, and they know these characters, and they know what they're doing, and they know how to get something out of even a small amount of screen time. There are some issues with this. For me, the big one is around the actual Half-Blood Prince element of the story. Not handled great. Not handled poorly, just kind of actually failed to be handled very much at all. Which is a shame, especially given that that's the title, but most of everything else going on here, I really like. I like the build, I like the feel, I like the flow, I like the look. I love the performances. I think this is the strongest performances from almost everybody in the entire film up to this point. I really like this one. I don't know if I'm in a minority on that. Suppose I'll find out. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let us talk about it. Bunch of stuff you can do as well. You can like and subscribe, both of which help me out. And also there's the bell, you know, if you want to keep up with whenever I get new stuff up, which is 4 videos a week these days. Also, Patreon, you can help support me, keep this whole thing going. And there's other things besides, link to my various social medias like Twitter and Patreon and merch and all sorts of stuff. Click on things or don't. You don't have to, because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.